Everyone, and welcome to the Mount Olive Township Workshop and Council meeting for February 13, 2018. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence for all those men and women that serve and protect us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Michelle, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act, please?
According to Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda? Here. Mr. Ferrante? Mrs. Labow?
Here.
Mr. Mania? Mr. Stewart?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Nacastro?
Here. Thank you. We have 3 items for discussion. The first item up is refund request.
Thank you, Council President. A resident was charged a $30 NSF charge. She was renewing 2 dog licenses online, and she mistakenly transposed some of the bank numbers. There is an ordinance which allows us to charge the $30 fee because there's a fee on our end. I'm not sure how you've handled requests for refunds in the past. I spoke to the mayor earlier today, and he was okay with issuing the refund. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention for approval.
Mr. Roman?
I'm correct in when I read the memo that she showed documentation as to that it was a clear mistake on her end.
Yeah, instead of like a 123, it was 213. So it was very clear that it was a mistake and done in a timely fashion.
I'm perfectly fine with a refund.
I'm assuming we all are.
Yep.
Okay.
That's fine. Next item is the vehicle lease memo.
This is more of just an FYI. 2 of our leases are coming due April 2018. One for the tax assessor and one for the zoning department. When we initially did the lease, it was for 45,000 miles each. We drastically overestimated how many miles we are using. We'll probably be only at about 22,000 miles for both cars combined. I spoke to both departments and they're okay with sharing a vehicle moving forward. So my plan is to return both vehicles once the lease is up and then just go out for proposals for one vehicle for them to share, see how that goes, and then if by some chance it didn't work out, we could still add a vehicle when we go out for the next term lease.
Sounds like a plan.
Yep, perfectly fine. And I applaud you for trying to save some money.
Thank you.
Changes to the Chapter 68 Police Department.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the chief to step forward as well. But in summary, the chief is requesting several changes to the Chapter 68, which is the code that deals with the police department. The first thing he would like to establish is a Class 3 Special Law Enforcement Officer, which are the police officers that work in the school district and are paid by the school district. He would also like to change the minimum and preferred qualifications to the requirements of becoming a chief. And the one other change is to increase the processing fee from $25 to $40 for the fee that we charge civilian police employees to apply for the job due to the time and effort required to pre-screen the applicants. So I'll leave it up to the chief to give us more information. Or handle any questions.
Do you have any questions before I proceed?
Nope.
Nope.
No? Okay. So regarding the minimum qualifications for chief of police, previously the minimum number of years that somebody was to have experience to be a chief of police was 3 years. I think that that's insufficient. I've raised that to 10 years. You would need to have at least 3 years of service on the police department to be eligible to test for the position of sergeant. But to have that as something that you would be eligible for as a chief just doesn't fit. I mean, it's unlikely that would happen anyway because you have to move up through the chain of command to begin with to get to the position of chief. So I wanted to raise that from 3 years minimum qualification to 10 years. Regarding the minimum qualification for education for chief of police, presently it's the minimum requirement is an associate's degree. And so what I want to do is raise that up to a bachelor's level degree. Presently, we have one staff officer who would be eligible to test for chief, who does not have its bachelor's degree. Everybody else does. I spoke with that individual, and we came up with what we felt was a fair date by which he could get his bachelor's degree, which would be by January 1st of 2021. So this isn't something that would kick in immediately. It's flexible to give that one individual the time to get his bachelor's degree. But once 2021 comes around, the minimum qualification for chief of police would be a bachelor's degree. Presently in the contract, for superior officers, for lieutenants and above, there is a condition where which if a lieutenant or captain were to take educational courses geared towards getting a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, they would be reimbursed upon completion of that course and receiving a C or better. So there is even a piece in the contract which encourages our staff officers to seek a higher education level.
Ms. Labow, did you have a question?
Yes, I was going to ask you. So there's no one else at this point that's interested that needs their bachelor's degree, so
No.
it's...
So this
okay.
isn't, I'm sure that one of the questions would be, is this something that I am suggesting to eliminate people from the potential pool of candidates for chief of police? And the answer to that is no. As a matter of fact, when I first suggested this, I was pretty transparent about it. I brought this up to all my staff that would be eligible at one point in time to be chief. And there was one dissenter, and that dissenter is the individual that I spoke to, and we reached the consensus that January 1st, 2021 would be reasonable to give that person enough time to get their bachelor's degree. That person is not, he's not shy a lot of credits. It's very few credits.
I was just going to say, if there was going to be somebody else who might come up and then you might delay it, it's going to be effective that date no matter...
It would be effective
no matter
January
what.
1st, 2021, that's it, period.
That's it, okay. So there can't be anybody else say, well, if you did it for him, you know...
Exactly.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to know.
Furthermore, one of the other suggestions I had made was the preferred qualifications for chief of police. So these are qualifications that you don't necessarily have to participate in the process, but when you are participating in the process, these qualifications are recognized by the then chief of police and the governing body to be things that are important in considering a chief of police. And amongst those things that I'm suggesting is that the preferred years of service be 20. So the minimum number of years to test for chief of police would be 10. The preferred number of years that you would be a police officer would be 20. I've also suggested that the potential chief of police candidate be accredited through the New Jersey State Association of Chiefs of Police as an accredited command executive. Presently, anybody that is of the rank of lieutenant or above can apply through the New Jersey State Police for accreditation. And I've also added a certificate in certificate in supervisory management, which was replaced with the Command and Leadership Program through West Point. The CSM program and the West Point Leadership Program no longer exist. It's now called the Command and Leadership Program. That's also a very in-depth leadership study experience that is offered by the New Jersey State Association's Chief of Police that I think has a significant bearing on whether or not somebody should be a chief of police. I think they should all attend those courses, and we try to send all of our command staff to those courses. Presently, all of our command staff have been through the command and leadership course. It wouldn't even matter to all the officers that are presently eligible to be chief. We're actually training a number of our sergeants in that course presently. And lastly, to raise the employment application fee for civilians, one of the reasons that I suggested to raise this is that our hiring process for police and civilians is thorough all the way around. So for instance, our civilian dispatchers, they get a psychological, they have to take a computer test which simulates dispatching, they have to go through a background check. There's a number of things that they have to go through in order to come on with us as dispatchers. And so being that there's a great deal of work that's gone into that, and the application fee hasn't been raised in a number of years, I wanted to raise that to a maximum of $40. So those are the proposed changes.
Yep, Mr. Roman?
Hi, to start off with, Chief, can you give me the difference between the Class 2 and a Class 3 special officer?
Yeah, a Class 3 special is something that was just established within about the last year and a half. What had happened was it was advocated for by the then-President, Chief Wagner, who was the head of the New Jersey State Chiefs of Police Association, and the purpose was to try and provide more armed officers in the schools. And so the difference between a Class 2 and a Class 3 is that a Class 2 special officer is armed and has police powers throughout the township of Mount Olive. A Class 3 officer only has police powers on school property. And once they leave school property, they're no longer considered a police officer. Also, by statute, we are limited in the number of people that we can hire as Class 2 officers, and we are not limited by the number of people that we could hire as Class 3 officers. So I don't have any immediate plans right now to put Class 3 officers in the schools, but I want to have the flexibility to do so. This is something that's been legislated for, and we have the option, if this is in place, to go out and get Class 3 officers. I just want to have the ability to do so.
And then, great, I applaud the effort, and I definitely want to move forward in that regard. Is it I have a problem with that any future Mount Olive chief of police can only come from within the ranks of the police department. I feel that might hamper us in the future, and it may, a situation that it may never happen. I mean, history has shown that we've had excellent officers and excellent chiefs of police, but I don't understand the rationale that our chief of police can only come from the ranks of the police department.
Well, there have been special circumstances in the way past. Before I came on in 1987, and a lot of you may not remember this, but the Mount Olive Police Department did not have a very good reputation in the community. And we had recently had our chief of police indicted, and the Morris County Prosecutor's Office was actually running the Mount Olive Township Police Department for a period of time. We were under county oversight. And we have worked very, very hard to turn around that reputation. And I think we've been relatively successful, because I would guess that most of you don't even are aware of that. But what had happened back then was that Ed Kane, who was the investigator for the Morris County Prosecutor's Office into corruption issues of incompetence or malfeasance on the Mount Olive Police Department, ended up being hired as the chief of police for the Mount Olive Township Police Department. And so there is a precedent for that in the past. I don't think that our department is in a position where we need to hire anybody from the outside. I think that I have a very competent staff underneath me. We have a succession plan in place, and I think for you to go outside of the department to hire somebody would probably be contrary to Title 40A. I would have to ask the attorney for more on that. But offhand, I don't think you can just go outside the department to hire somebody to be a chief of police.
Right, and I know nobody on here would ever has any current plans of ever even thinking about hiring any of our leadership outside of the police department. My concern is hampering future councils and mayors by restricting them not only to that it has to come from a Mount Olive Township police officer, but now that they have to serve 10 years.
Well, you're restricted, I believe you're restricted by statute in that they have to come from the Mount Olive Township Police Department unless you can demonstrate some type of need as to why they shouldn't be. For instance, if you had a corruption issue within the police department, but you would have to demonstrate something. So if we go back to the fact, if we take that off the table, that they're going to have to come from the Mount Olive Township Police Department, what I'm saying is that the minimum qualification should be that that officer have at least 10 years of experience on the Mount Olive Township Police Department. I don't think that is a difficult thing to ask. I was promoted relatively early in my career. I was promoted with 8 years on the job to sergeant. The person that I know that was promoted to sergeant even faster than me was Lieutenant Austenberg. He had 7 years. And you have to at least be in your position of sergeant at least 1 year before you can test for the next rank. So Lieutenant Austenberg, or Sergeant Austenberg, had 7 years on. When he had 8 years on, he could test for lieutenant. If he would have gotten lieutenant, that would have been 1 year as lieutenant. Now he's 9, he's testing in his 10th year, so you see where I'm at with that. So by the time you get to lieutenant, at best case scenario, in my experience, is you will have 10 years on the job. So you have to next go to captain, and then you have the chief's position. So I don't think 10 years as a minimum requirement is being too strict.
Do you recall when we established the 3-year minimum to be a chief of police?
The 3-year minimum, as far as chief of police, I think the 3-year minimum is based on the statute by which you have to have 3 years on to test for sergeant. So I think that what they did is they just mirrored that in the chief, because there are some towns that their highest level below chief is sergeant. And back in the day when Mount Olive was small, that might have been the case.
So you don't recall when that was established?
I don't.
20 years or more?
It's got to be over 31 years ago. That's how long I've been here.
And therein kind of lies where I have the situation. We have something in place that is 30-plus years old, and I don't see where it has created a problem. I guess and I'll be the first one to say, I had no idea that we were under county control, which is news to me, and I look forward to reading about that. But usually I like the idea of changing things because it's either going to address a problem or maybe prevent a problem that we see in the future. I see the opposite by requiring it to be 10-year minimum, that, we end up, again, I'm repeating myself, but we end up hampering the future councils and administrations in long past due, where they might have a qualified candidate that says, let's say has 7 years, but because we put it in an ordinance that we can't. As of right now, I don't see any compelling reason why to change it from 3 to 10, and it hurts me to even disagree with you, because I'm one of your main supporters. I love our police department. I love the work that you've done and some of the instituted changes that you have accomplished. I like the way we're going forward in technology. So we're going forward in a great direction. I just don't see the need for this. And forgive me if I don't see your vision, but I would respectfully have to disagree as to see the need for the change.
Yeah, that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and I wholeheartedly disagree. And I'll tell you why. Because sometimes people say, why fix it if it's not broke? Well, this is a situation where, in my opinion, it's like, why are we doing it because we've always done it that way?
Yeah.
Why are we doing that? Nobody, in my estimation, if you ever promoted anybody here with 3 years experience or 5 years experience to the position of chief, that would be a profound mistake. There is just too much that's going on in terms of how fast law enforcement has changed and how much you have to know. There's no way that you're going to be able to lead a department with 5 years on the job.
So are we?
I try to get officers that show promise into separate divisions once they've had 4 years on. I think once an officer has had 4 years on the road, they've had a pretty good taste of what's out there, and they can move into another division. But to think that somebody with 5 years on is going to lead a department of near 50 officers covering 33 square miles with a plethora of different problems and challenges, I think would be a profound mistake.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, turning it to 10 years minimum is to prevent a future mayor from making the wrong decision?
No, it's about setting the standard so that the officers that are working the road understand what the expectations are. And it does let the governing body and mayor know as well that that is recognized as job experience is recognized as a very serious component to the selection process for any rank, but especially chief of police.
And just before, Ms. Laba, I was just going to say, my opinion is just like, with my own business. I wouldn't ask someone else to tell me what to do, what I thought was right. My opinion is that you're telling us what you need and what you think is right for the police department now and moving forward. You're the expert, in my opinion. I'm only up here because I'm elected here now. 4 years from now, I may not be from here, or 2 years from now. But you're still going to be here, hopefully, and you're the one that knows what your department needs. And I think that's the most important thing, is the stable person that runs the department that's there knows what they need. So I'm in favor of what you're saying based on what you're telling us, because that's what you're suggesting and what you require.
That's
and what you
my
need.
opinion.
Right. And Ms. Lebow, do you have?
Yes, I think you're 100% right on. I agree with you completely. And I really look at it that, okay, so it said 3 years, but that was so unrealistic. There's nobody who's chief after 3 years, not in the department our size. There's no way it's going to happen. You figure you get hired, you're at least a year before you even are on your own. And then you got a couple more years, and as you went through the ranks, how long it takes by the time you're even up to a lieutenant where you might be able to be considered for chief, it's 10 years, no
You're gonna
matter
have
what.
that timeline.
So I think what you did was you looked and you see how the operation is actually going, and you just sort of brought it up to date. And I applaud you for that. I think it was excellent. And I'm also agree with you 100%. It should always be within the ranks, because it's not just about running the department and all of your staff. It has to do with the community as well. And it's a large community. It's not easy to learn, even just the territory itself, just the areas. So I think it's an excellent plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Armiando?
I agree with the chief, and I support the changes.
Thank you.
Any others?
I mean, I would just be repeating myself. We're here to make changes that not only are going to occur during our tenure, but for future councils and mayors. And if we decide to put this in place, we're going to hamper the ability for a legislative and administrative body to have a little bit more leeway. And that's by changing it, we're assuming that council and mayor is going to be making the wrong decision. Who's to know that in the future there's not going to be a candidate that has 7 years experience but would make a great chief when we're retired or we're somewhere else, but they can't bring them on as chief because we put this in ordinance. I mean, the last since I've been in Mount Olive Township, I can't recall us having a bad police department with a bad chief, and we had these, qualifications in place. Obviously, I'm in the minority, but, I would respectfully disagree on making these changes.
Mayor?
As hard as it is for me to actually agree with Alex, he's right. As someone who has had the opportunity actually to participate in the decision-making process as to who's going to be the next chief, I have to tell you that it should be left open to where we are currently. I think it's restrictive enough. It's left to lieutenants and captain. I think to restrict it any further is a mistake. You're hampering the administration. If there is a superstar who comes along, who is the right choice, and I think that you should consider that in terms of the way that you vote on this.
But is it, I just want to make sure I'm clear then on that. Is it considered, you're saying lieutenant and captains are considered for chief?
That's the way it is. Lieutenants and captain today, that's the way that it should be
So
left.
what's the requirement in years to become a lieutenant and captain? Is it 3
What
years?
What's actually being proposed is to add additional requirements in terms of years on educationally. It should just be left where it is. because it's down to 5 people now. And that's really where it should be left. I understand where the chief is coming from. I don't agree with him. It's probably the first time that I've disagreed with the chief on anything.
Probably not.
It really should be left where it is. You don't want to hamper the administration in future years in terms of who the administration is going to choose to be the police chief out of the 5 people who are currently eligible. It's not like we're looking to go outside the police department. I agree 100%. It's not where Alex is going with his opposition to this. It should just be left where it is.
I mean, the only thing I could agree with the chief is on it changing it to a bachelor's degree, because
I don't even agree with that. It should be left, anybody who has achieved the rank in Mount Olive of lieutenant and captain should be considered for the job of chief when it becomes open. I've had to deal with it. It's at times it's limiting because you have 5 people, all with strengths, all with weaknesses, and whoever is in charge of the decision. And my hope ultimately at the end of the day is when I retire, you will still be here because you've done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
So it's not about you and me, it's really about what we as a governing body, and when I talk about governing body, I'm talking about council and the mayor, what we're left with in terms of choice, in terms of the future of the Mount Olive Police Department. And oftentimes, you may be actually confronted with a situation where maybe somebody doesn't have years on in service who's a lieutenant. Maybe someone who's on as a lieutenant doesn't have, what ultimately may be a criteria that is in paper. There may be some factor that just separates that person from everybody else who's up. And I can tell you that from experience, that it's a mistake actually to limit it any further than where we are. So you should leave it where it is and let the process work the way that it has, and let the right choice be made, irrespective of all the other factors. You only have 5 people. It's not like we're talking about bringing somebody else in from the outside. Anybody who's made lieutenant in Mount Olive has excelled. It's a hard position to make. Don't limit it any further. I really ask that you vote that aspect of what's being proposed down.
Well, this is for discussion this evening, obviously, that we're discussing and going through, which is valid points on both sides, I see. So it becomes a question of us to further discuss this, I assume, and make our recommendations back, I guess, or not,
well, I mean, I would right now.
to you.
Do we need to give the chief a direction or the clerk direction where we want to go on this? Because, I mean, we got, what, 3 bullet points on here at least?
Yeah, well, I know at least on the other items that we can take a straw poll.
Because
and see
I for one, if
consensus.
there's, yeah, I for one, if there's going to be a vote, I would like to see these items separated.
Separated. Well, yeah, they should be,
You
because
know,
there's a
because
different
I don't
issue.
want-
Alex is right on point with this. Don't limit it any further. Let
God,
the
hell, it's
process
freezing.
work between the 5 people.
What happened?
It's hard for me to say because Alex and I are often on opposite sides, but I've been there. It's a hard choice. I always thought that the most interesting thing that I could do was actually choose the next chief, choose the next captain. It's the worst part of everything because no matter what choice you make, you're limited in terms of the ultimate choices, and no matter what you do, you're letting somebody else down.
So we have different items on here. Mr. Amiano.
I think we should vote. We should vote and go with the decision of the majority.
Well, we're going to take a general consensus, but there is 3 different components of this that do pertain to this. So we need to look at those items that you're talking about specifically, which is the Article 1, which is the provision of special class officers. That's one of the items we should, is separate.
I'm all in favor for that one. Adding
The
a class
consensus
3.
is on that I believe we're in favor of that. The issue is the Article 2, the appointment of promotions, minimum qualifications, and I think that's the one that's is
Changing
valid
it from
points
3 to
both
10.
ways.
I'm
And maintaining
against
it as where it is, with the 3-year term, we're making revisions to it. What's the general consensus on that? Do we feel like keeping it where it is, or do you see a need to change it? Mr. Andy, are you in favor of changing or keeping?
I favor the changes because we are listening to it.
Well, consensus, just your opinion, I guess, of that, right? Is that what we're looking for?
Yeah, just direction.
Just direction. Should we move forward with to consider that, or not to consider it?
We should move forward.
Ms. Laybow?
We should consider it.
Mr. Stewart?
I say leave it as it is.
And Mr. Roma, we know your point.
Yep.
And I personally would, I mean, I'm conflicted between both, so right now I would consider just re-looking at it myself, not making a decision today whether or not we will or not. So I would like to read it more and maybe ask more questions of it and see to make a better decision than just on that this evening, based on both sides of what I heard. So that one I would put off for now anyway on that one. We move, general consensus is the Article 2, Section 2 is.
And then we have the
And we have the
bachelor's degree, and then changing the preferred qualification
Right.
from 10 to 20.
Well, that was
I'm
the.
also against that.
That was the Article 2, right? Was the
That was
10?
the last bullet
three.
point is
Oh,
for
Article
preferred
3.
qualification
Yeah,
from 10 to 20. I'm also against that. I'm okay.
I would
leaving
agree
it
with
at 10.
Mr. Roman.
right. And Mr. Amion, are you in favor of direction of moving it from 10 to 20 or leaving it?
Yeah, I'm for moving forward.
Ms.
I
Layback?
just want more clarification on the 10 to 20. So,
They have to have
That's
20 years on the
preferred.
force? Preferred.
20 years preferred,
Right.
10 years minimum.
It's not required, but preferred. So 10 is where we are now, is, 10, well.
10 is preferred.
3 is
10 is-
where you're now.
3
Right.
is where we are now, which doesn't make any sense.
So it really doesn't make any, it's just preferred, but not
Yeah, there's a difference between
required.
minimum and preferred.
Right.
I think what you need to do as a governing body is really respect the process of the administrative appointment of the chief and captain at the end of the day. It's an analysis of who's best for the job. It has nothing to do, I should say, one of the factors that you consider, or all of the factors that you consider, are all of the things which are being proposed but not codified. So you really, I think you are hamstringing the administration in terms of who they think is best to lead the department in the future by instituting additional requirements that don't already exist. And I think that's a mistake, having gone through the process. And obviously, I chose Steve to lead the department, and I chose Mike Spitzer to be the captain, based upon all of the factors. As you limit the choices, you're not necessarily guaranteeing the right choice based upon the personnel that are available. It's a mistake, having gone through the process. You're already limited in terms of who you can consider. I don't think that limiting it any further is the right decision.
So that's the Article 2 is what we're talking about then, I guess, which includes there's different items in here as far as the qualifications, but also the eligibility part of it, where you're talking about being eligible to get the CCLE, like whatever, Certificate of Eligible Chief Law Enforcement Executive accredited. These are all requirements you're recommending that are not currently
All of
in there?
Article 2 has to deal with the requirements, minimum.
And none of them,
preferred.
are these, any of these already in there? I mean,
Some of them are in there, but they're not up to date. For instance, the command and leadership is not properly recognized in the rules and regulations because that course has changed.
There's 10 preferred certifications, so
Okay.
the chief is just recommending to update those to the certifications.
so we have to update the
that-
certifications.
Right,
for
some are no
sure.
longer even
That
valid.
has to be done
Right.
anyway.
But
It's
you
just
have
more
to-
the question
You
of
do
that.
have to recognize that certain people in the past have been given greater opportunity to get certifications than other people. It doesn't necessarily mean that from a municipality perspective, they're the right choice to lead the
Right.
department.
Right, there's other factors.
That's why I'm telling you that the right choice is to leave it to the 5 I agree 100%. I am a firm believer in advancement within the ranks of the department. That anyone who has achieved the rank of lieutenant or captain should be considered for the position of chief when there's a vacancy. And anybody who's made it to the rank of lieutenant should be considered for the position of captain when there's a vacancy. There are many factors outside of the governing body's control that would lead someone to have greater qualifications on paper than ultimately what is best for the municipality. I think you need to be really careful. I think Alex is right on point here in terms of his position. Leave it where, there are not many times where I have stood up here and tell you that my experience as mayor is telling you that the right choice is to leave it where it is and let the process work the way that it does, depending upon who sits here and who sits on the governing body to make the decisions. But ultimately, to limit your choices doesn't work to the benefit of the residents. It only works to the detriment of the residents, because you may end up with somebody who is not the best choice to lead the department into the future. It may.
No, I
don't
understand
know.
that. Just because of an education doesn't mean they're better qualified. And I understand that. It's in a business world, it's the same.
There are many
same
factors
process.
that actually come into
Right.
play. Who's been given the opportunities to get the education? Who shines in other areas? Maybe there's somebody out there who is just a tremendous leader amongst the department, or somebody who's got the great skills that nobody else has in terms of the computer aspect of what happens in the department. And all of that has to be brought into consideration when we're looking to make advancement within the police department. So while I applaud the chief for bringing this forward to us, it's my opinion, after having given significant thought to it, it's the wrong decision. Leave it where it is. Let every decision made be based upon all of the factors that are on the table at the time that the decision has to be made. Otherwise, you're going to be picking amongst one, and that doesn't benefit the township.
So
And I think that's really what Alex was
was
saying.
trying to say. Mrs. Lehman.
I kind of look at the whole thing a little bit different. We're very, very fortunate to have Mayor Greenbaum for our mayor, because he does look at things with a very intellectual view. He doesn't play politics and that type of thing. My fear would be that if we had a mayor at some point who was very politically motivated, I would like a little bit more assurance that the most qualified person is chosen as the chief and the captain. And I think that this plan kind of like helps to ensure that a little bit more, because you have somebody who's gone through the ranks, has gotten this education, qualifications, and it's not just somebody just gets the job because. And that's what I'm afraid of. And I could be thinking of bad politics way back in the day, but we're not always going to be as lucky to have you or somebody with your ethics as mayor.
I'll take that as a compliment, colleague.
It
But
is.
the bottom line is that it is no matter whether I'm here or I'm not here, it is a coordinated effort between the governing body and ultimately the administration. So in an unperfect world where you have let me change that. In a situation where we have a different governing body and a different administration, ultimately, we'd all have to agree as to who the choice is to make the next person. I don't want to go into specifics in terms of individuals as an example of who we have now and who might be the next choice going forward. I just think it's a big mistake to hamstring the governing body and the administration to limit the next choice to the one anointed person who,
Might be
meets the criteria of a heightened ordinance. So what I'm telling you is, leave it where it is. I very rarely ever speak as passionately about an issue as I am right now, because I had to go through the process, and I had personal friends who were up for the position, and I had to sit there and say, okay, who's the best choice? Who's the best choice for chief? Who is the best choice for captain? what are the educational aspects that they bring to the table? What have they done in their current positions? How long have they been in their positions? All of those factors come into play, whether you codify it or you don't. But that's not always going to be the case. I can tell you that there are people currently in the process right now who deserve to be considered for whatever positions open up that we could all get behind. And you don't need to codify ultimately to put somebody in front of them because they've had the opportunity in terms of different educational opportunities through the police department. Should leave it where it is and just let the process work as it's supposed to work. Fortunately for us, it worked the way it was supposed to. As difficult as the decisions were that I had to deal with, I'm comfortable that I made the decisions for the right reasons, and I assume that whoever sits in the seat after me will make the decisions for the right reasons also. And I understand, Colleen, how you can go back to years past. I think that was an anomaly. I think that if you go back for the 30 years before that, even where there were Democratic administrations, that decisions were made for the right reasons. That was an anomaly. And you don't really want to limit the choices. Ultimately, whoever the administration picks for the leadership roles in the police department, it has to come to the governing body.
Either way.
Everybody's going to understand it. And I can put someone forward right now and tell you that this is somebody who was a phenomenal individual, and I think they should be chief in the future, notwithstanding the fact that he may not have the educational aspects in terms of the opportunities that he was afforded. And I tell you that you don't want to go that route. You want to consider everybody who is eligible, everybody who is a lieutenant and a captain, no matter how long they've gone through the process. The fact that they've made it to lieutenant means that the process has worked. Because I don't remember ever having a lieutenant in the police department who I thought was other than qualified to be police chief. Ever. Since I've been here in 20-plus years. Some are better than others. Obviously, I'm very happy with Steve as chief. But don't limit it to don't create additional qualifications. It's limited enough as we are.
So then the question is this, to put it this way, and so we can get a consensus. We're talking about three different things here. We have Article 1, which we're saying that, I'm gonna ask everybody's consensus. Article 1, we would like to move forward with, right? What's that?
I just want to add, Council President, we have a draft ordinance that
Oh, okay.
incorporates all of these.
Okay.
This was not on for a vote tonight.
Oh,
This was
okay.
purely for discussion.
Okay.
So, but I will need guidance from council
Okay.
as to how to adjust
That's fine.
the ordinance.
And that's what we're hoping to get to right now. So Article 1, do we want to move forward with the class officers? We're in favor of that, right? Everybody said we
adding
want
a
to add the
class
officers. The question is Section 4, Article 2, and Section 5, Article 2. Do we want to move forward or leave where they are? Are we comfortable where they are with the mayor's direction, or do we want to move forward and make changes? Mr. Amion, did he move forward or stay where we
The
are?
way I see it, the town is lucky to have the chief. The chief is doing a good job, and he has the public support because of most people are very satisfied with the security that the police department is giving us. And he is trying to tell us from his experience, after having been there, he has seen what is lacking and what is not lacking. So we shouldn't be afraid of changes if he's recommending from the inside. And so that's why I would go with his proposal.
So you want to move forward on that. Mrs. Laybow? On the section, Article 4, Section 4 and Section 5. Do we move forward with them or
Yes.
not? Do you want to move forward with those two? Mr. Stewart
At this time, no.
and Mr. Roman is no?
Nope.
And I'm going to decide with them as far as right now to leave it according, I'm going to trust the mayor and the administration as well, although I said, the chief obviously knows what he wants in there, but I guess based on listening to the mayor, it hasn't caused any issues at this point as far as where we are or where we plan to be. And we were all through this process, obviously, with the chief now. which worked out great because we have a good chief, so it didn't seem like there was any issues with that after understanding more of the other side. So I'm more inclined to leave it where it is at this point on those two sections, based on the information that I receive here now as well, not just my opinion. So I would say those two sections, we would leave where they are, 4 and 5. And I think section 6, I'm sure we're okay to move forward with, which is changing the fees.
Yeah, that's, I'm fine with
Yeah.
that.
Everybody's all right with the fees? So at this point, we would move forward with section 2, article 1, and section 6, article 3, but not change any of the requirements in section 4 and 5. The requirements, I just want to make sure, do we need to change the certifications for any purpose, or just update certifications? You're saying the names, Andrew, changed, different things changed, do those need to be changed in an ordinance? Or is it,
Well, some that are listed no longer exist, Chief.
That's correct.
Yours is already.
I mean, if
so
you're
they
gonna,
need to be updated
if
then?
you're gonna
or-
update
This is
the
in the memo.
rules and regs, you might as well update. I think those replace the classes that no longer exist with the
Right.
classes that
All
have
right, so
replaced
we
them.
need to redo that again, then whatever has to be redone, replacing classes and things need to be done.
We'll
I'll
revise
it
the
all.
ordinance.
Yeah,
And then-
I'll have Andrew take a look at that. I also had some problems with the proposed rules and regulations, which are more administrative than a council decision in terms of what the chief is looking for. But I'll deal with the chief directly on those.
Okay. All right, and then we'll work on that for the, okay, so we'll redraft the ordinance and come back, and
Okay.
thank you, chief, for,
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
yeah, all of that information, and, let's see, we have 22 resolutions. There's, anyone have any questions on any resolutions? I know, Chuck, there's a couple of resolutions here, 22, possibly 21, and 20, if there's anything you want to address, you and Sue on those three.
I can tell, good evening.
20, 21?
Yeah, I don't have the list in front of me, but one of the, you have a resolution to appoint an administrative agent, Frank Piazza.
Correct.
I believe, am I correct? Is that
That's
all?
one of them, yes.
And
That's
and
20.
that is a requirement as part of our housing element and fair share plan, as part of the settlement agreement that we've entered into. And even if we didn't have that, if we were still under the COA process, we would still have to have a person like that. This person's expertise is in the implementation of the affordable housing plan itself, in terms of screening tenants and doing many of the kinds of nitty-gritty details that have to be done to ensure that qualified households, both low and moderate income households, qualify. So that's what that's for.
That's what that's for.
You have another resolution to endorse a spending plan.
Correct.
And I just for the record want to tell you, I know this is a work session, but the spending plan, that term actually comes, that exists in COA's rules, and I keep referring to COA's rules. COAs still exist, they're just not active. But in the court process where we are today, we are still bound by those rules. We still use those rules to put together the housing element and fair share plan, this what's known as a spending plan, and many other things. And in brief, what the spending plan does is lay out how the money in the township's affordable housing trust fund will be spent. We have an affordable housing trust fund by virtue of developer fees. So you're entitled to and have been collecting fees from development in the township over the years to provide the affordable housing. The spending plan gets reviewed and sanctioned. In this case, it'll be by the court, and then that authorizes the ability for the town to, to provide money, whether it's to Habitat for Humanity or Homeless Solutions for the Cobblestone Project, or in some cases, you're also taking a certain percentage of that of fees from that trust fund to cover some of the work that I do here as a person on staff. So that's what the spending plan is, and I do want to mention, you have a copy of it, and I will not go through all the numbers, but I do want to tell you that just today I was back on the phone with, or email actually, with the court-appointed special master, whose name is Michael Boland, and he did recommend one change It's a stylistic change, has nothing to do with the numbers. On page 2, where the title is Revenues for Certification Period, the suggestion was, and I agree with this, is to change it to Revenues for Compliance Period. It means something in this process to the average person. The distinction would be meaningless, but it does mean something. So that's the change, and the revised copy that you got just, I think, the other day simply reflects the fact that I made some additional estimates in terms of projected revenues coming in from the developer fee ordinance. And once I did that, I had to recalculate everything else. But essentially, that's the spending plan is again how we're going to invest that money in the trust fund through the year 2025. It can be changed, and there's a process to change it in the years ahead should the revenue projections not work out and some other things change. But right now, that's the plan. If you endorse it, it will go with all the remaining documents that we have. With Ms. Sharp, we'll be bringing this to court on March 16th, I believe. And we hope at that point we'll have our final compliance hearing and be done.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Chuck? Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Also,
I just have one question. The revised one that we got, you're gonna give me a revised with that little change, or that little change you spoke of is already in this revised? Because I just wanna know, because the resolution refers to the attachment, which is the plan, so I just wanna make sure I have the correct one.
I'm glad you asked, actually. When I put under the date February 13 revised, I would like to remove that after tonight, after you've seen. I did it just so that,
Right,
it's
right.
confusing enough and
Yeah.
throwing another document at you at the last minute. But I would not want to submit to the court and to the special master a document that says revised, because they're going to ask me, well, revised from what?
Okay.
So, but with this plan, this is the one I submitted, and I believe that you have now distributed to the council. Am I correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's when they have now, but my question is, at the beginning when you were speaking, you said on page 2 there was gonna be just a little
That's-
change.
yes.
Is that change already in this revised?
No, it's not. This happened this afternoon, so no.
Okay, so then you'll send me the new one to go with the
Revised.
resolution that's gonna be passed?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
And I appreciate you mentioning that. And so that one change is just to change the term certification to compliance. All the numbers will remain as they are.
Okay, good, thanks.
thank you, Chuck.
Okay.
Resolution number 22 is being continued to the 27th, so you know, on there as well. Anyone have anything else on resolutions? Seeing none, we have 2 ordinances. Does anyone have any questions on those ordinances?
There's four ordinances for first reading.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's 4. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not there. Yes, sorry about that. Any questions on those 4? Seeing none. Any old business? Seeing none, any new business? Seeing none, anyone from the public wish to be heard at this portion of the meeting? If you want to be heard now, just state your name and address, please.
Afternoon.
And help.
My name's Robert, and my last name's spelled O-S-Z-U-S-T. Address, or does it matter?
Yeah.
307 Kings Arrow Road. I just had some questions regarding your presentation, Chief. This is what the chief was proposing was an ordinance, correct?
Yes.
Both,
Proposed.
actually. Both an ordinance and a change to rules and regulations.
As a ordinance, can a person, say, going for the position, request for a, and I apologize for not knowing the technical term, it's still been a while since I've been here, but request to be considered anyway at the vote of the council to be passed over the ordinance, much like how, say, if a building wishing to be proposed was taller than the regulation in the town, they could ask to be built anyway with the town's approval.
No, there's not a variance. I think you're sort of referring to a variance.
Yeah.
You can't do that with an ordinance. An ordinance can be changed by the governing body.
But obviously that process would be way too
but,
slow if somebody was trying to,
Right, but
Yeah.
up to that point in time, the township must follow the ordinance.
then it would just be my suggestion as a citizen of the community, perhaps the raise in the qualification time just be something less extreme than 10 years, but I would think that 3 years is a bit small, just from the outside looking in. And also, I wonder if that's not a sustainable solution, and the education is a point of contention, perhaps doing a split where someone with an associate's degree might want to spend more time in the department, whereas someone with a bachelor's degree spend less time. I don't know if that's a feasible solution either, and I don't think that I'm in the position to discuss it either, just kind of throwing it out there.
My position, obviously, having sat here, is that there are 5 positions that are currently eligible for elevation to either chief or captain, which are the 2 primary leadership roles in the police department. Once you've made it to the position of lieutenant, you have a certain educational, whether it be formal or within the police department. You've obviously developed some kind of rapport with the governing body. You've developed some kind of specialty in terms of why you should be considered for the position. It's not like someone who comes in as a patrolman is going to be eligible for the position after 3 years. Generally, the people who are considered have been here for a lengthy period of time. Some people bring additional skills that have nothing to do with the classes that they've taken, have nothing to do with the amount of years that they've been here, other than the fact that they have successfully made it to the position of lieutenant. So what my whole position on this is, don't hamstring the people who have to make the decision as to what's in the best interest of the municipality based upon what classes you've taken or necessarily how long you've been here within the class of people who are eligible to be elevated in the first instance. Let the process work. Let the people who have to ultimately, who have been elected to make the decision, whether it be the mayor or whether it be the governing body, consider all of the factors that made someone eligible to be lieutenant or captain, to be advanced within the ranks to lead the department. That's all I've said. Now, obviously, whether you codify the amount of education that someone has or you don't, it's always going to be considered. Whether you look at the amount of years that someone has been here as compared to somebody else and what they've done within the department, it's going to be considered. And those factors are very important. But at times, I can tell you that there may be somebody who is just far and beyond those factors that has made it to the level of lieutenant or better, that needs to be considered in the process and not eliminated because they don't meet a standard which doesn't really have the full understanding of what it takes to lead the department into the future. That's why we have elected officials. That's why we limit it to the lieutenants, captains for the next position. And it takes into consideration everything that the chief has put on the table, but doesn't codify it in terms of who the best choice is. And it's not always the best choice as to the person who's got the most educational background. Sometimes it's going to be somebody else, and you have to let the elected officials make that decision without codifying it into what we've discussed. I think that's really what Councilman Roman was saying at the end of the day.
Yes,
I'm sure you can understand that. You and I have sat and we've talked, and I think we pretty much, from my perspective, see things on the same level.
I didn't want to have my proposal seen as anything as diluting the subject to say that a patrolman would become chief of the entire department. I did not want to make my statements heard in that way. And I also agree that education and experience aren't necessarily interchangeable, and in fact, some people do excel at different speeds.
Yes.
I've been on both ends of that as a person who's achieved a bachelor's degree and also tried to be in areas where my bachelor's degree did not apply at all, and my experience had to bolster my resume in other areas. But as a person who is relatively young to this world, I don't think I have really a good place to be speaking at that level. The only reason that I decided to speak at this moment was to voice options for compromise between the council board and the chief that I didn't hear during regular discussion, and just wanted to put in the minds of the people. If the board decides not to listen to my decisions, I'm not going to be heartbroken about it. But I thank you for having me up here and listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I know Michelle's on her way.
Uh-oh, we're like in limbo.
I guess we're taking 5 minutes.
This is back, if we're on TV, you would get that little display. What's that called?
Commercial.
No, yeah, actually, we're going to commercial.
I think it would just be a profile picture of you, actually. 5 minutes.
Have a bunch of raccoons running around.
The raccoon. You see what happened to me? Been in touch with the VA all day.
Hey, welcome back. We're going to the Mount Olive Township Council meeting for February 13th. I call to order. Michelle, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act, please?
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante. Mrs. Labow.
Yes,
Mr. Mania.
here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
Mr. Roman.
Here.
Mr. Nacastro.
Here.
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Leyba. Mr. Amianda, would you approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
Yes, Mr. President, I make a motion for approval of minutes of previous meetings on January 30th, 2018, public meetings.
Second.
Any questions, concerns, comments? Roll call, please.
Who's second?
Me.
Alex.
Mr. Amianda.
Yes.
Mrs. Labow.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Mr. Roman.
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we have I need a motion to accept the mayor's appointment for advice and consent of council for Pride Committee, Ryan Curtis, 3-year unexpired term, 12/31/19.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, any concerns? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda.
Yes.
Mrs. Labow.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Mr. Roman.
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro.
Yes. We have 14 pieces of correspondence. Does anyone have anything on those? Seeing none, I open the hearing to the public on ordinance number 3-2014, an ordinance of the Township of Mount Olive, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, vacating a portion of Third Street by the township.
You said 2014,
Yeah, I
not
was gonna say.
2018.
Did I say 2014?
I was
Yeah,
gonna
my way
say,
back.
yeah.
How did that one come up? I was looking at 14 above it, I guess. 2018, thank you for correcting that. And Mr. Stewart, would you? We have that second reading.
Second reading.
Which one am I? Over here? This
Mr.
one.
Ferrante
Okay.
is not here.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that ordinance number 5-2018.
3-2018.
Oh, sorry, I was at the wrong one. I apologize. 3-2018,
Sorry.
yeah. Be moved for adoption and final passage.
Second.
Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Any council comments, questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Ordinance number 3-2018 is passed on second reading, and I hereby direct the clerk to forward a copy of the same to the mayor, and publish notice of adoption as required by law. I open the hearing to the public on ordinance number 4-2018, an ordinance of the Township of Mount Olive, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, to amend and supplement Chapter 550 Land Use, Article 6, Zoning, Section 550-86, Affordable Housing, in accordance with the Township's Housing Element and Fair Share Plan adopted by the Township Planning Board on December 21st, 2017, and endorsed by the mayor and council on January 16, 2018, and to incorporate the terms set forth in the July 20th, 2017 settlement agreement between the Township of Mount Olive and the Fair Share Housing Center. Mrs. Laybow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for adoption and final passage of ordinance number 4-2018.
Second.
Does anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Any council comments, questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Ordinance number 4-2018 is passed on second reading, and I hereby direct the clerk to forward a copy of the same to the mayor and publish a notice as adoption is required by law. I open the hearing to the public on, let me see, next item on the agenda for first reading is ordinance number 5-2018, bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by the Township of Mount Olive in the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, appropriating $4,256,532, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $4,576 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof. Mr. Stewart?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that ordinance 5-2018 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, and that a meeting be held on February 27th, 2018, at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, for a public hearing, consideration of second reading, and passage of said ordinance, and that the clerk be directed to publish, post, and make available said ordinance in accordance with the requirements of the law.
Second.
Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Anyone from council? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Next item on the agenda for first reading is ordinance number 6-2018, bond ordinance providing for various improvements to the water utility in and by the Township of Mount Olive in the County of Morris, New Jersey, appropriating $680,000, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $646,000 bonds or notes of the township to finance part of the cost thereof. Mr. Roman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that ordinance number 6-2018 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, and that a meeting be held on February 27th, 2018, at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, for public hearing, consideration of second reading, and passage of said ordinance, and that the clerk be directed to publish, post, and make available said ordinance in accordance with the requirements of the law.
Second.
Anyone from the public wish to be heard? You can go up again, you have to state your name. Oh, no. You have it, okay. Yes, just state your name and address again for this portion. Thank you.
Perfectly fine. Robert, and my last name is OSZUST at 307 Kings Arrow Road, Bud Lake,
Thank
New
you.
Jersey. I just wanted to know, I'm sorry I didn't see this before the meeting, but what was the what was the motivation behind writing up this ordinance was, and I specifically wanted to know if it had to do with the main breaks that were associated with the JCP&L power outage, or if it had anything to do with the Indian Springs talks we'd been having, or if it had been something entirely different, like maintenance.
Andrew?
Neither. This is the 2018 capital budget for the water utility for 2018, so these are all the capital improvement projects for this coming year.
So it was just standard planned? Yeah, okay, I just wanted to know what, if there was. I apologize for not reading it more thoroughly in advance. Thank you.
No problem, thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Anyone from council? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Next item on the agenda for first reading is ordinance number 7-2018, an ordinance of the Township of Mount Olive, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, amending Chapter 81 Recreation, specifically Article 2, Fees for Recreation Department Programs, establishing recreation fees for various township-sponsored recreational activities. Ms. Laybow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that ordinance number 7-2018 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, and that a meeting be held on February 27, 2018 at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, for a public hearing, consideration of second reading, and a passage of said ordinance, and that the clerk be directed to publish, post, and make available said ordinance in accordance with the requirements of the law.
Second.
Anyone from the public wish to be heard on this ordinance? Seeing none, close to the public. Anyone from council? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Michelle, you have something on this?
Joe had asked why the date was March 13th for the public hearing, and the reason for that is the COLA ordinance has to be adopted the same night that the budget is adopted, so we have to push it, and it also has to be on for first reading at the night before the introduction of the budget, so that's why, I'm sorry.
We're doing it tonight, but it'll be.
It's
second
being
one will be
introduced
on the
tonight, but
13th.
second reading will be on March
Okay.
13th.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda for first reading is ordinance number 8-2018, Township of Mount Olive, County of Morris, New Jersey, calendar year 2018 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget cost of living allowance and to establish a cap bank. Mrs. Laybow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that ordinance number 8-2018 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, and that a meeting be held on March 13th, 2018 at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, for a public hearing, consideration of second reading, and a passage of said ordinance, and that the clerk be directed to publish, post, and make available said ordinance in accordance with the requirements of the law.
Thank you.
Second.
Mayor?
Yeah, just for purposes of the audience, we have never, ever exceeded the cap bank since I've been here. It's standard for us to adopt this particular ordinance, but it's really of no moment since we're flat in terms of our tax increase. But every year we've adopted this particular ordinance.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Anyone else on council? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. We have 21 consent resolutions. Does anybody wish to move any to non-consent? Seeing none. Mr. Stewart, would you move consent resolutions 1 through 21?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for adoption and final passage, consent resolutions 1 through 21.
Second.
Second was Mr. Amion. Does anyone from the public wish to be heard on any of these? State your name and address for the record, please.
Susan Caulfield, 17 Chickadee Road in Bud Lake. I have a couple questions about the resolution number 1, stigma-free, that there's going to be a committee formed and training. And I was wondering if there's a timeline on that. When do we establish a timeline for that to happen?
Anything we establish, you got to enter?
The mayor and council could move forward however they wish. Usually a committee is formed with staff members, professionals, local residents. We reach out to the county, they do an initial training for everybody, and then throughout the year, we do, we offer the committee as a resource to the community. So now that we're past the resolution to become stigma-free, we could take the next steps and accept applications for committee members.
That would be the next step. then.
That would be the next
How
step.
long does that usually take? I guess that's what I'm asking.
How
Or
long
do
will it
we
take us
have
to-
any way of foresees with a committee like this,
There's no timeline.
Mayor?
Yeah, it's not a.
I would
depends.
hope within 30 days.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
what I
we can
wanted.
get the
Yeah, with a
applications
month,
out.
we'll get something out. It's important. And Lisa Brett from my office will be spearheading
Right.
the effort. And I can tell you that I will make sure it happens within the month to
Okay.
get everything going, because it's an
It's-
important issue.
It's something that we thought that I thought would be addressed in the MOMAC committee, but we decided to,
I don't
That's-
really get
that's what this
involved.
decision-
I
okay.
don't really get involved in terms of the day-to-day operations of any particular committee that I'm not leading. So
so,
what I'm gonna tell Lisa is that she should schedule a meeting within the next 30 days in terms of stigma-free, whether within the MOMAC or outside of MOMAC. I would assume it's gonna be outside of MOMAC, to actually talk about what kind of additional steps need to be taken to implement the fact that we have taken this great step in terms of becoming a stigma-free community. So the answer to your question is, I expect that something will be done within 30 days.
okay, I would like to say that I'm very happy that we're going in this direction and that we're formally addressing, the stigma-free issue.
As am I.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public on those. Anyone from council? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mrs. Labow?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Mr. Roman, would you please move the bill list?
I move for adoption the bill list.
Second.
Anyone from the public wish to be heard on the bill list? Questions? Close to the public. Council, any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mrs. Labow?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes, administrative reports.
I'll start. I know that Andrew has some as well. This morning, being someone who's able to receive the I am responding messages, there are certain messages that come across that I obviously understand are more significant than others in terms of medical conditions that are expressed. If you're not familiar, I am responding is the same communication that a member of the emergency responders would receive beyond being chimed out through the dispatchers. This morning I received a text message that there was a 53-year-old woman who resided on Woodland Avenue who was not responsive and not breathing. Generally, when I get something which is not responsive and not breathing, I can read through the message and understand that most likely there's been a death in the community. Not always. In this particular case, unfortunately, that was the case. Today, I can tell you that Mount Olive lost a real personality. Donna Cope, 55 years old, 1980 graduate of wherever she went to high school, lived in Mount Olive for, where was it, Succoson?
Opakon.
Opakon. Lives in Colleen's neighborhood. I was able to figure out early who it was. Longtime employee of the Bud Lake Diner, someone whose character, vivaciousness, community spirit really shone through. And it's a big loss to the Mount Olive community, to her husband, Ray, to the two girls. It's a big loss to the community. It's one of the hardest things that I have to do as a community leader is to deal with the losses in our community. I was fortunate enough to go to the household today with John from the Bud Lake Diner, who invited me to come with him as a member of his, I guess, the Copes extended family. in that she had worked at the Bud Lake Diner for a number of years. I'm sure anybody who's been to the Bud Lake Diner would recognize Donna as the person who was sweetie, honey. Anytime she passed by the table, it was always some kind of comment of endearment. And it will be a big loss, not only to the community, obviously, but to the family. And so our condolences go out to the family. I don't have any particulars in terms of what arrangements are being made, but it's no greater loss to the community than any other loss that we've suffered over the period of years that I've been involved in politics, and it's a very sad day for Mount Olive Township and certainly for the Cope family. Our prayers and wishes go out to the family in terms of a speedy recovery. The only other comment that I really have this evening, which really pales in comparison, is that the township, in a very interactive way, is actually running another job fair, or second since the closure of Sam's Club. It's this Wednesday, February 14th, from 10 to 2 at Mountaintop Church, 6 Norwright Road. There are over 45 businesses that will be participating, and we're hopeful that we can match up some residents or some individuals from out of town with some businesses that are looking for employment. I want to thank WRNJ for the continued support. Obviously, Mountaintop Church, through Pastor Matt, who time and time again has stepped up for the community in any way that is required. God bless Mountaintop Church and Pastor Matt. That's all that I have.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Sue Sharp. She spent about 2 hours with us last Thursday at a department head meeting to go over Oprah, so thank you for enlightening us on that. And also just to remind council, on Thursday at 10 o'clock, DOT is coming to discuss the bridge replacement on 206 and the impacts to the community. So this Thursday at 10 o'clock, if you're available, they're going to give us an update.
If you're not familiar with it already, DOT is proposing closing down Route 206 from basically her main drive. It's going to require a detour from ShopRite. It's actually going to run from Chester, where the Quick Check is on Hillside, take you down past West Morris Central to Flanders Bartley and back around near ShopRite, back onto 206.
For how
It's-
long?
Well, they say 9 days, but.
Yeah, right.
Be 9 months.
It's going to be a major inconvenience in July of 2018.
So if you haven't scheduled your vacation yet, plan it for that time.
There's not too much that we can do about it. We've worked with them in terms of trying to minimize the impact to the residents. The bridge needs to be replaced, and we'll get whatever information that we have about it out as often and as many times as is required to educate the public, both here in Mount Olive and in the surrounding communities, in terms of the impact that that closure is going to have. Having said that, I'm going to follow up with the fact that I've had many inquiries about the bridge at Flanders Drakestown and River Road, and as disappointed as I am, and you can correct me if you have any additional information, last I had heard it was that the bridge was going to be completed by the end of February. I'm not holding my breath based upon the activity that I see there. Obviously, it's outside of our control. It's a county-wide project. The inconvenience to the residents has been severe. The safety aspect of the closure has already demonstrated itself when we had the fire on River Road between River and between where Flanders Drakestown would cut in and where ultimately Norwright is. I've made my concerns numerous times to the county business administrator that this is a project which should have been completed long ago. The fact that the county allowed the contractor to take 3 weeks off between Christmas and New Year's, what I thought was inappropriate in light of the safety concerns. And ultimately, it's something that I'm terribly upset about, but have no real ability to change the course of the completion of the project. So, you know, when it comes to bridge replacement, we're at the mercy of the entities, whether it be the state or the county, that ultimately is responsible for the projects.
Thank you. I'm sorry, old business? Anyone have any old business? Does anyone have any new business? Any legal matters?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to note that with the passage of the 2 affordable housing resolutions and the adoption of the affordable housing ordinance, that hopefully completes all formal actions that the governing body needs to take relative to affordable housing. So we can just look forward to the hearing on March 16th, and hopefully that will close everything out.
Thank you. Mr. Amianda, anything on Board of Ed or seniors?
Yes. Yeah, now, Board of Education report. Board of Education held its work session meeting at the administration building in Flanders, New Jersey, on Monday, February 12, 2018. The board took actions on school-related matters and reports. Robots from 40 high schools in New Jersey and Pennsylvania will compete in Mount Olive from March 9 to March 11, 2018. Mount Olive School District Hall of Fame Committee is seeking nominations for people who want to be nominated for that position. The board discussed the possibility of having a rental skating ring for practice ice hockey teams, hockey teams in Mount Olive. No action was taken. There were some issues involved with that because the board were evidently the board didn't support the recommendation, but it was put to rest for further consideration. There were reasons why they didn't take the action, because questions were asked about funding of that kind of project, and no matter how it was, no matter how the superintendent of schools will come up with money, but at least some of the residents of Mount Olive Township will come up with footing part of the bill. And also they wanted to know, why do these groups want to relocate in Mount Olive Township? Because there are questions concerning that. They asked the question of the dome. You remember we passed a resolution here supporting the dome, and now at that meeting there was an issue was raised that the dome gathers steam or something like that, so they have to raise it or sometimes also lower it down. So there is a problem with managing. And as they do that, some neighbors of that place, they were complaining that they don't support that kind of move that the town is taking. There were also a discussion. We're talking about the rental ice hockey ring. There were 5 districts in the area, from Roxbury, Rockaway, you name it. Five districts were there. So the meeting was well attended, but mostly were the people were were advocating for that kind of arrangement. In other words, they want those districts will share the cost of renting the place, but the board didn't see, the Board of Education didn't see the money coming in right away to take that kind of arrangement. And so in other words, we have to be very careful when we support that kind of arrangement, how it is going to be funded. And not only because the dome, which we supported, like someone mentioned that the town council supported the board to approve that dome. And that dome, when they raise it and bring it down, there is some kind of damage or shortage there, and they have to come in with more funding, but which we didn't know about that when we were going into that kind of arrangement. So, okay, that's as far as that is concerned, the outside arrangement. So the delegate, it was like almost a political campaign, people there who came from those towns were actually trying to persuade the board to approve the kind of the policy to start a rental ice hockey in town. And they didn't know where they're going to put it in town. Someone's mentioned, Sancho Elementary School, and that's the fields is flat, it would be the best place, but it was not, it didn't work, it didn't go well. So we have to be prepared for that. I think maybe that the board, the superintendent of school is going to approach the mayor for his support, but he has to know that we as elected officials, we should be able to debate those issues very carefully, because they affect the environment of this town. Because if you can think of what we have opened space for outside people without regarding the people here. So while going on with that, also there was a hot issue about body cameras. The possibility on the body cameras on students was very hot issue. There were students there protesting it, and some parents there also protesting. They don't like the idea of having body cameras on there in classes, or even when they are having lunch. Some students are spying on other students and trying to report things which are going on. So that was an issue to which was taken very seriously. And then there was also another issue about the issue of safety of students on playgrounds. Starting from the middle school going to the high school, there were some parents there who had really raised noise about the grounds not being better safe for their children, and even if there is damage, it takes the school a long time to repair it. So that was also the discussion. So it was a heated discussion. That's the end of the education report, Board of Education report. And if there is anybody here with a question want to ask some of these things that I said, if I can try to answer to the best of my knowledge. And then coming to the seniors report. Now, Mount Olive Seniors report of Seniors Club held its social meeting on February 6, 2018 at 11:30 a.m. Mr. Haggard, Richard Haggard, club president, gave members itinerary of coming club events. February 20, 2018, the club will observe Valentine's Day. There will be give a gift and get a gift of the same value, estimated at a cost of $1. March 6, 2018, Police Chief Stephen Bicker will be senior guest speaker. Police department will provide lunch for the seniors. And the other point was that on March 20th, 2018, St. Patrick's Day, the club will provide lunch for its members. And that's the two reports.
Thank you, Mr. Amianda. Sounds like a lot at the Board of Ed was going on.
Oh yeah, it was very. You couldn't tell. These people. I thought it was like a political rally. In other words, they had asked these towns to send delegates to come to.
Not a lot of people.
To do that, but the good thing that the board members they could not pursue it or take an action on it. So I think maybe from now on you will be hearing from them. But it was so fun also that the superintendent of school had said a rumor had been going on around the town about that rental ice hockey building in town, but I had not heard of it.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything about ice hockey.
Right, so it was, well, that's what it was.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart, anything on economic or community action?
Update on Economic Development Committee. Jeff Stadelman, who's the chairman, has created a briefing package that's going to be distributed to the team, as well as the Morris County EDCs will be coming up for one of the meetings in the first quarter.
Thank you.
For the Community Action Panel, our next meeting is on March 1st.
Thank you. Ms. Lebow, anything on open space, Board of Health, or, oh, that's your two? What else?
Yeah, I
That's
have
it.
the two.
That's it.
Yeah, this year just two.
Just two. I was looking for your third.
Yeah.
Remove that.
Yeah, slacker. Board of Health is supposed to meet next Wednesday. We've decided to not have the meeting because we don't really have anything to discuss at this point, so the next one will be in March. And with the Open Space Committee, we had our meeting last night. There's a couple of items. One thing, this is going to be the third round for the county's application process for grants for trails. And in the past, what they have had was you had to have your plans, your engineering done before you could apply for the grant. And it turns out a lot of the towns, I spoke with Christine Marion at the county, a lot of the towns were also in agreement with us that it's really kind of hard to lay out that kind of money to have your engineering plans. You don't know if you're going to get the grant or not. So they're looking to change, tweak their application process a little bit, which is really nice. And they're so we're waiting to hear what the end result is with their meeting. The other thing that we had, and yesterday we met with the Land Conservancy people, Sandy, or how do you say her last name?
Barbara and
Sandy.
Sandy.
Yeah, it's Sandy, but I can't think.
Yes, the new manager.
Yeah, and to talk about the South Branch over here, the farm and the the garden center and all. It was an extremely interesting meeting. It was incredible. Chuck McGarty was there, Andrew was there, I was there, Claudia was there, as well as the two ladies from the Land Conservancy. Did you get a chance to speak to them? Can I talk about the big project? The most exciting part of the whole thing, I thought it was really cool. They are going to have, in May, it's going to start, it's called Project Chew. Okay. So there is a section over there that has invasive species that needs to be removed, and nobody wants to use the chemicals that you need to remove it. So in conjunction with Antler Ridge, we are going to have 4 goats and 2 sheep who will be living over there from May to October. And they will be it's going to be, the one fence area, it's going to be electrified by solar power. And then a couple feet out from that, there's going to be what they call a snow fence. It's the wooden fence with the weaving with the wires. And they will have, it's a horse trailer will be brought in between those two, and the only way you can get in there is go through a man door in the trailer, and then you have the door, barn door type things for the animals to get in and out, and so there's not like people can just climb in there. And the reason why they have the snow fencing is because they feel in order to keep the goats and the sheep where they're supposed to be to do their job and be nice and hungry, you don't want them to be distracted by other things that might look tastier. So that's why you put the fence that they can't see from. So anyway, that's really exciting. I think it's gonna be a 1 acre,
2 acre,
but the first one's gonna be 1 acre, and they're gonna then move over to a set. Yeah, their goal is to do 2 acres, but they start out an acre at a time. And so that was really exciting. And then they have, I forget the name, was it Clifton?
City Green. City Green.
Oh, City Green out of Clifton is going to be doing an organic garden on the other side of the street from there, and they are going to donate 1,000 pounds of their produce to the Land Conservancy, and they will turn around and donate it to the Mount Olive Food Bank. So it was a very, did I cover pretty much everything? There's a lot of interesting stuff went on. So it was a great day yesterday. It was a very, very busy day yesterday.
I would imagine. Yeah, I was supposed to be there. I'm sorry I missed that. But that's the area they're going to be doing the farming on eventually, right? Is that the
Yes.
issue? I know they had a lot of that stuff in there was so bad.
They have.
They couldn't do anything
right.
with it.
And they're still trying to improve the butterfly fields.
Right.
Because, a lot of especially monarch butterflies are endangered right now. So they're just doing so many wonderful things, and they work very hard at all of it. But I can't wait for the goats.
Yeah, goats will be
The goats,
interesting.
and
That'd
I
be
want,
fun.
if we can name them.
Cheap labor, huh? There you go.
They're gonna be chief, you have to start touring over there and make sure nobody steals the goats and the sheep. Yeah, we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
There we go.
Mr. Roman, anything on recreation or pride?
Well, mine is not as exciting as goats. Recreation. Unfortunately, the meeting was canceled due to weather, and Pride meets at the end of the month.
That was exciting. Mr. Mayor.
I received some additional information which I want to pass along. Donna Cope's life celebration will include, visitation on Saturday, February 17th from 6 to 9 p.m. with an 8:30 p.m. prayer service offered at Lieber Lakeside Funeral Home, 150 Landing Road, Landing, New Jersey. Burial at Stanhope Union Cemetery will be held privately and at the convenience of the family. In lieu of flowers, please consider the Children's Heart Foundation, Pennsylvania chapter, P.O. Box 176, Swarthmore, Pennsylvania 19081, in order to help fund research for children like Donna's great-nephew and Alexander Cuccinella with congenital heart disease. So again, if you're planning on meeting with the family, it's from 6 to 9 Saturday at Lieber Funeral Home in Landing,
That's in Landing,
New
right?
Jersey.
Landing, okay.
In Landing, not the
Anybody
other.
who's ever been to the Bud Lake Diner in the last 10 years would know who Donna Cope was and
Yep.
how important she was.
Or if you
to the
called in enough, she knew who you were every morning when you called in to pick up something. So, yeah, she was very pleasant.
And even before that, she was a manager at McDonald's in Ledgewood before she went over to the diner. And she's just, no matter where she went, you fell in love with her. She was a great person.
Carpe diem.
Yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to be heard at this time? Please just get up, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jonathan Backman from 6 Indian Spring. I just wanted to follow up on our meeting. Andrew, thank you for being there. That Tim Quinn organized at my house with 2 individuals from the DEP and basically everybody from the water town crew, was in my basement looking at it and everything. I provided some evidence to Gene, the town engineer, of evidence of less than 20 PSI in my water main to definitively prove that there is less than 20 PSI in the water main. They agreed upon opening up and putting a gauge on the main, basically behind my house, to prove that fact. But I also just want to bring up the ordinance to approve the capital for water supply, ordinance 6-2018. I'm a little late speaking about it, but just hoping that this can be considered. I know it's going to take some time to dig that up and to definitively prove that there's less than 20 PSI in the water main. My only concern is that we're going to be able to find this out once the ground thaws, and then we're going to have to wait until the capital budget for the following year to meet DEP standards. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's all. That's my concern. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
I
update.
just, Jim, I have a
Yes,
question.
Ms. Lynn?
You have to wait till next year, as you said?
Well, no, I mean, the question that's been raised is that to the extent that there is an issue which has been determined that needs to be fixed, if we haven't placed the money in the
No.
budget to fix it for this year, then it has to wait until 2019. That's the concern of the resident.
And we can't do that until we have a price, until we know what's gone, and so we're.
It's a complicated
Yeah.
issue, but ultimately, if there needs to be a fix to the problem, we'll find a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Okay.
You've had my attention since you brought the issue up, and we will find a way to fix the problem to the extent that it needs to be fixed. Whether it's this year, I agree with you that it shouldn't wait until next
Right.
year, once it's been established.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir? We have it.
Exercise today. For a third time, or are you good?
Yeah, third time.
Okay, Robert.
Sorry.
And for the curiosity, my last name is pronounced Oshist.
Okay.
So there you go.
I have the spelling.
Yeah, I know. I'll do origin next time. And I'm on 307 Kings Arrow Road. I wanted to know, unfortunately, Mr. Ferrante is also out today, but the environmental meeting was canceled, and I know there was going to be discussion on the state of the lake. Was there any plans for the rescheduling of that meeting, or?
Yes, February 20th, I believe.
Yeah,
20th? 20th, yes.
7 o'clock
Yes.
over there? Cool. Did
Did you see all the first responders out on the lake this weekend?
I did. I was worried for them because they were going kind of far out and there were some warm days.
Well, they were, certainly protected in terms of the number of people, the equipment that they had, the thermal protection that they had. So I too was concerned, but ultimately at the end of the day, it was staged and it was, they were well protected.
Yeah, no, it was nice to see. Also, I didn't know about the land sale auction that was going on. I was wondering, are the records for that sale going to be posted anywhere? And will the next land sale, where are the land sales advertised?
In the local newspaper, today was just the closing. The land sale actually occurred, the auction was, I believe, 2 months ago, but yes, the records are public.
In the newspapers, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And usually when there is a land sale, we send notice to the surrounding neighbors.
Oh, I see. And that's the record we post in the Daily Record, or?
Daily
Does that
record.
work?
Daily Record,
Yes.
thank you. Also, I had a question for you, Ms. Lebo. Regarding the environmental committee, I had been to a Democratic committee meeting like way long ago during the election periods and stuff like that. And they had an interest in connecting trails, and I noticed that you just talked about trail documentation. So is there any plan on cross-connecting trails like that the group
Absolutely.
wanted to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, if you go on to the, I'll send you the link. You can actually see where all of our trails are in town. We've been doing a lot of the documentation of it. We have right there, Bob can tell you too. It's really interesting. You click on the interactive map and it'll tell you where it's located and what you can do at the different trails. It's phenomenal. But, and a lot of people don't, this is just pretty much the past 2 months, I think, that we've really
The
been
link is up.
getting
There's
it out
a
there.
connection for the link off the rec department's
Yeah.
webpage.
Off the rec
Mayor?
department.
Two biggest disappointments I've had since I've been mayor. Number one is that we haven't been able to create a mechanism to alert the public to the amount of trails that we have and the interconnection between the trails. And I know it's one of Alex's biggest pet peeves, is that we should have some kind of interactive app.
And we do.
Yes,
Well, we
but
have the
it still,
GPS,
it
yeah.
still doesn't get me to where I want to be in terms of the trail development that we've had and educating the public in terms of the trail development. The second biggest problem that I've had is the amount of potholes that we have in town. It's almost on every road. I can tell you, I was in constant contact with the DPW director this weekend. The weather, you know, with the freezes and the thaws and the rain has created a tremendous problem for the township, and I saw them all out today. You know, at any given point, we probably have 20 to 25 people out filling potholes or clearing snow, depending upon the weather. And I recognize, and, you know, my Facebook page is certainly, it's certainly prevalent on my Facebook page that the amount of potholes in town is ridiculous at this point. So we're working diligently to rectify that problem. It's on just about every major thoroughfare in town right now, whether it be Woodland Avenue, Smithtown,
I was gonna say,
Stevens
did you-
State Park Road, Drakestown. It's just everywhere in town. The water that we had this weekend after the freeze and thaw just created a major problem for us, and anything that we had fixed before was ruined by the amount of rain that we had. So I can tell you that one of the major priorities moving forward is to, in the next week or two, is to fix the pothole problem in town. It's terrible.
Robert, did
Yes.
you have anything to do with Woodland after you were there today? Because I keep complaining about the.
No, it's, you know what, the guys are out, you know, one of the major misunderstandings, whether it's clearing snow or it's fixing potholes, is that we have 20 to 25 guys in roads that are fixing or dealing with 30 square miles of township. So it's, and the same goes with the police department in terms of speed control. You know, they understand that we have maybe 49 police officers, but at any given time, we have 6 police officers that are on duty that cover the town on a 24/7 basis. So that any time we have an accident or two in town, you have 2 or 3 of the 6 police officers that are responding to those accidents or domestic violence or any type of emergency response. So it's difficult for us to really create a speed enforcement in any particular area of town. I can speak to the chief about having somebody there in a short period of time. Speeding is a problem on every, you know, the one benefit of having the potholes, it slows people down. As funny as that may sound, and I saw that on my Facebook page too. These are all speeding, potholes, all of these are major daily concerns to me, to everyone sitting up here, quality of life issues that we try and deal with the limited resources that we have. And I know that people just see what's in front of them and they don't see the greater picture in terms of the limited resources that we have with 20 or 25. Because I know this is not what you stood up here. So
I was gonna say,
it's kind of a little bit different of a topic, but
I mean, if
I
we,
can only tell you that I agree with you that we need to do a better job in terms of linking up our open space trails, and we need to do a better job in terms of fixing our potholes and dealing with the speeding issues. So I've connected them together, and
yeah, I just wanted to say,
Trails and the potholes.
I didn't want to specifically say that I had any stake in the quality of the trails at this point.
the trails are tremendous.
No, I love the one, so you actually also brought up, and I don't want to belabor the point, it's kind of late at night, but my girlfriend and I frequent the community gardens. My girlfriend's actually having 2 plots this year to grow vegetation and flowers, and we love
They
having it
have
there.
trails there too.
That's what I was about to say. We've been on that trail, and it's a very nice
And
trail.
did you go to
There
look
are,
at?
every time I've gotten feedback on our trails, it has always been positive. The one negative
getting
is
people
that
there.
people don't know where they are.
They don't know where they are,
and
that's the big problem.
the only reason I'd brought it up is because I was appreciating hearing that they were making the process for applying for trail building. Is that what you were saying, Ms. Lebo?
Well, there's grants available, but
Yes.
there's one from the county that they're working on specifically for trails.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about modeling it after the grants that they use for the, yes, thank you, for the historical grants. It's the same type of a process, which has been working very, very well. There's another on Shop Lane. The Land Conservancy has trails at the cul-de-sac of Shop Lane. There's a fence there, a gate, you just go in there, and those trails are absolutely gorgeous as well. So, but there's a lot, there's so many all over, but I'll send you the link, or if you
Thank you.
go into the recreation webpage, but I'll send it when I get
We've been
home.
very active in terms of developing trails in Mount Olive since I've been
Oh,
mayor.
the Braille Trail?
Unfortunately, we haven't been successful in communicating effectively where the trails are, how to access them, and that's something that we need to work on, besides the potholes and
Yes.
the speeding issue.
And the bridge.
Well, the bridge is
outside of
my
our control, yeah.
Everything else is kind of within my control,
Yeah.
so.
But no, I'm sure that the people who actually frequent the Democratic meetings would be happy to hear that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, close to the public. Any council comments, Mr. Amianda?
No.
Ms. Lebo?
Yes, I just want to say that Donna Cope is definitely going to be missed. She is a kind of person that you just, didn't matter what kind of a day she was having, you never knew she was having a bad day. She was always cheerful, bright, peppy, and I drive right past her house. Every time I go down, when I'm leaving my house or going back to my house, I drive right by her house. And many, many times she'd be out working on her garden. I'd always slow down and beep and wave, and she's just so delightful. And she will definitely be very missed tremendously. And the other thing too is on Facebook, it was really interesting to see. I don't think I've ever seen this happen before. There had to be thousands of comments on various pages where people said, oh my God, Donna from the diner. It was like I don't even know if she understood how many people's lives
Yeah,
she
touched
touched.
a lot of people's lives.
And that's
You're right
a
about
beautiful tribute, a wonderful thing, and I think she teaches everybody a lesson that it doesn't cost anything to be kind,
Nope.
and you just make so many people happy, and hopefully her legacy will continue in that direction.
Thank you, Mr.
Just a heads up, in a couple weeks, Saturday, March 3rd, there's a special event to recognize all the first responders in our community, and that'll be 1 to 5 at Jersey Girl Brewing.
Mr. Roman?
I too was saddened by the passing of Donna
Saturday,
Cope,
March
and
3rd.
the one thing that I
One to
that I
five.
definitely took away from seeing all the comments is